Have you ever felt that there's something inside you, wild, untamed, hidden in the shadows, that you try to keep locked away? You walk through your days wearing the mask of calm, of reason, of kindness. You fulfill your duties, smile at the right moments, say what's expected of you. But beneath all that, there's a silent room no one sees. A room full of strange colors, stormy emotions, broken fragments of dreams you no longer speak of. And maybe that's where your truth lives. We were taught to chase the light, to always be good, nice, productive, joyful. We were told to silence our anger, to hide our jealousy, to erase our doubts, to swallow our pain. We became polite versions of ourselves, acceptable, predictable. But in doing so, we began to lose something essential. Your creativity, your ability to give birth to new ideas, to express something raw and real, to feel alive in the act of creating, doesn't come from control. It comes from chaos, from the wild, from the parts of you that don't fit into society's tidy definitions. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your neglected twin. It holds your intensity, your intuition, your primal energy, your forgotten voice. What if the reason you feel blocked, uninspired, empty, is because you've abandoned this part of you? You see, the shadow is not just where your pain lives, it's where your fire lives too. There's a story buried in your shame, a poem inside your rage, a painting hidden within your sorrow, a melody born from your loneliness. But they can't emerge if you keep pretending they don't exist. You cannot create from a place of numbness. You cannot awaken your soul if you're busy maintaining a performance. The truth is, real creativity is not polite. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It erupts. It disturbs. It surprises even you. But how can you touch that kind of power if you're afraid of your own depths? Imagine your soul as a house. Most people live only in the living room, the tidy space where everything looks fine. But the basement, where your secrets are buried, that's where the electricity comes from. That's where the raw material of your truth is stored. And you've locked the door. Maybe you were told as a child that your emotions were too much, that your silence was better, that anger was dangerous, that sadness was weakness. So you learned to exile parts of yourself. You became a master of control, of self-editing, of being the good one. But now in the quiet hours, you feel the cost of that exile. You don't know what you feel anymore. You can't finish the things you start. You don't recognize your own voice. And worst of all, you feel disconnected from your soul. This is not failure, this is a calling. The shadow doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reunite you with the forgotten parts of yourself. The child who screamed, the teenager who rebelled, the adult who dreamed too wildly. They're all waiting for you. And yes, it's frightening to open that door, to face the chaos, to feel the pain you've kept locked away. But do you know what happens when you finally look? You begin to remember who you are. You remember what you love. You remember how much you feel. You remember what you wanted to say before the world taught you to be silent. And slowly, the colors return, the visions return, the words, the music, the fire. Creativity flows not because you force it, but because you stop resisting it, because you let yourself become whole again. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to stop hiding from yourself. The shadow is not darkness. It is light not yet claimed. So sit with your sadness, paint your grief, write your fury, dance your longing. Let your hands shake. Let the tears come. Let the silence speak. This is not madness. This is alchemy. This is how the soul remembers its song. And in that moment, when you stop running from your own depths, you will feel it, a door creaking open in the dark, and behind it, the pulse of something wild and sacred waiting to create through you. You try to silence the storm, but it lives inside you. It doesn't ask for your permission. It howls in your sleep. It flickers in your chest. It whispers behind your thoughts. You push it down. You smile. You distract yourself. You fill your calendar, scroll endlessly, chase accomplishments, perform routines. But at night, when everything goes quiet, there it is again, uninvited, unresolved, unspoken. This is your shadow, and no matter how far you run, it follows, because it is you, Not the version of you that you've polished and presented to the world, not the version that earns approval or fits in comfortably at dinner parties. This is the part of you that aches to be seen, even if it terrifies you. The part of you that's raw, wounded, powerful, and waiting. We've all been taught to divide ourselves, to keep our contradictions hidden. We become fragmented, turning parts of ourselves into strangers. We say, "This is good," and "That is bad." We exile our confusion, our aggression, our sensuality, our grief. But what happens when the exile becomes too heavy? The soul begins to fracture. Your smile grows tired, your passions fade, your art turns cold. You find yourself going through the motions, but the meaning is gone. There's a dullness to everything, like living in a house with the lights turned off. Because where there is no shadow, there is no light. Creativity is not born from perfection. It is born from contradiction, from contrast, from collision. It's the spark that erupts when light meets darkness, when clarity meets chaos, when longing meets truth. If you try to be only light, you will never be whole. And if you are not whole, your creativity becomes imitation, echo, decoration. Real creation, soulful creation, requires depth. It requires courage. It requires that you step into your own underworld, not to destroy yourself, but to retrieve something sacred. Every great myth, every timeless story speaks of this descent. The hero must enter the cave. The dreamer must face the dragon. The wounded child must walk through the forest of shadows. Not to become someone else, but to reclaim what was lost. A voice, a memory, a power. This is not just metaphor. This is your life. Maybe you've felt it. A sudden surge of emotion you couldn't explain. A burst of inspiration that frightened you. A vision that came out of nowhere, full of fire and truth. That was your shadow trying to speak. Not to shame you, but to awaken you. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to be more spiritual, more positive, more productive. You need to listen. You need to feel. You need to stop pretending that the parts of you that hurt are mistakes. They are messengers. Inside your envy is a desire you abandoned. Inside your rage is a boundary that was never honored. Inside your sadness is a longing that still breathes. And if you dare to feel them, not analyze, not judge, but truly feel, they will become something else. They will become art. They will become movement. They will become clarity. The darkness you fear is not here to swallow you. It's here to remind you that you are more than what you've allowed yourself to be. You are not just the roles you play. You are not just the mask you wear to be accepted. You are not just the achievements that make you feel safe. You are also the silent scream. You are also the buried dream. You are also the fire behind your fears. And when you begin to accept that, all of it, without exception, you begin to create from a place that is no longer performative. It is primal, pure, alive. You stop creating to be seen. You start creating to be true. That is the wisdom of the shadow. It asks you to stop resisting who you are, to stop splitting yourself into pieces, to stop calling your wounds failures, and start calling them doors. Doors to stories only you can tell. Doors to art only your soul can make. Doors to a freedom you've never tasted, because it lives in the place you were told never to enter. But now you know. The silence inside you is not emptiness. It is waiting. And if you are brave enough to enter that silence, you will not be destroyed. You will be reborn. There is a silence that doesn't soothe. It lingers beneath your skin, not peaceful, but heavy. It's the silence of what you never said, the silence of swallowed pain, of dreams placed gently on high shelves to gather dust, of rage turned inward like a blade. You smile, you function, you perform, but inside something is choking, not for air, but for expression. Creativity cannot live in a cage, and yet that is where you've placed it. Not intentionally, you were taught to behave, to be manageable, to be appropriate, to never speak too loud, feel too deeply, need too much. You learned early that to belong, you must shrink. So you did. You trimmed the edges of your truth. You repainted your sadness in socially acceptable tones. You told stories that made others comfortable, not real. But truth cannot be erased, only buried, and everything buried still breathes. The body remembers what the mind refuses. That trembling in your hands, that sudden tightness in your chest, that aching fatigue that never fully lifts. These are the signals of a soul asking to be unmuted. You are not broken, you are full. Overflowing, actually. With words never written, with emotions never danced, with paintings never painted, with primal energy never released. It's all there, under the floorboards of your performance, waiting, pressing upward, cracking the surface. The longer you repress, the louder it becomes. Not always in sound, but in stagnation. Your ideas grow thin, your passion dries up. You start to imitate instead of originate. You wonder where your spark went, but it didn't leave you. You turned your back on it. Because the spark was never polite, it didn't color within the lines, it wasn't always pretty. Sometimes it was anger, sometimes it was lust, sometimes it was the strange, the wild, the misunderstood, and you were told to hide all that. But creativity is not neat. It is volcanic. It does not knock quietly, it erupts, it floods, it burns away illusion. And if you want to create from the depth of your being, you must be willing to burn, to unlearn the rules that keep you safe but silent, to disappoint the voices that told you who you should be, to face the terrifying beauty of your own rawness. This is where the shadow becomes your ally, not your curse. It shows you what you've repressed, not to punish you, but to liberate you. Inside your silence is a scream. Inside your numbness is a desire. Inside your structure is a storm. And if you dare to let it move through you, not just intellectually, but physically, emotionally, spiritually, you will begin to remember something ancient. You were not born to be small. You were born to be a vessel of mystery, of contradiction, of sacred rage and tender devotion. You were born to feel the full spectrum of your humanity, not in theory, but in motion. And every brushstroke, every note, every paragraph, every carved piece of clay becomes an exhale of the soul finally allowed to speak. You cannot create if you are afraid of yourself, afraid of your darkness, afraid of your desire, afraid of your failure, afraid of your brilliance. These fears are natural, but they are not final. The shadow invites you to stop hiding, not to be reckless, but to be real. Not to destroy what is fragile, but to give it space to breathe. And in that breathing, something awakens. The hands begin to move again. The voice begins to tremble out of silence. The eyes begin to see color where there was once only gray. You do not force this. You allow it. You surrender the mask, and with it, the illusion of control. What comes through may surprise you. It may frighten you. It may even offend who you thought you were. But it will be honest. It will be alive. And that is where true art lives, not in perfection, but in presence. So don't ask, what should I create? Ask instead, what am I refusing to feel? Because when you touch that, when you allow it, cradle it, breathe into it, you will find yourself writing things you didn't know you knew, saying things you were never allowed to say, imagining things that seem to come from somewhere else, but they don't. They come from you, the parts of you you've buried, the parts that have waited in the dark, not to haunt you, but to make you whole. You stand at the edge of yourself, staring into the dark waters below. They shimmer with something ancient, something that frightens you, yet pulls you closer. It is not danger that lives there. It is depth, the unseen, unspoken, unnamed layers of your being. What you've buried, what you've feared, what you've denied in the name of control. And yet that darkness is sacred. Creativity is not born in clarity. It is born in the murk, the in-between, the trembling space where logic fails and mystery begins. You are not here to repeat what's already been said. You are here to descend, retrieve, and return with something true. And that descent always begins in shadow. Not the shadow of evil, but the shadow of the unexplored, the forgotten, the shamed, the divine chaos that lives behind your polished image. You don't have to create something beautiful. You have to create something real. And real comes from contact with the unknown. The cave you fear to enter holds the voice you've been seeking. Why do you think some of the most powerful art in history came from agony, from exile, from solitude? Because pain breaks the shell. It removes the costume. It pierces the illusion of control and reveals the soul underneath. That's where the gold is. The gold isn't in your persona, it's in your wound. This doesn't mean you must suffer endlessly. It means you must stop running from what already lives in you. Because that running is what drains your life force. That running is what silences the music in your blood. That running is what kills your originality. You are not too dark. You are not too strange. You are not too much. You are layered, wild, sacredly unfinished. And that is exactly where your creativity hides. In the cracks, in the contradictions, in the places you've been told to avoid. The shame you carry, it's a doorway. The grief that floods your chest at night, that's a river waiting to be painted. The anger you bury with smiles, it's a sculpture in the making. The desire you've silenced, it could write 1,000 poems, but only if you stop editing yourself. Perfection is the death of soul, and creativity is the resurrection. There is no freedom in pretending. There is only repetition. And the world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your truth, as messy, raw, and uncomfortable as it may be. Because someone out there is waiting for exactly that, for the tremble in your voice, for the scar in your story, for the imperfection that makes your work real. They are not moved by your control. They are moved by your courage to break the silence, to break the performance, to break the loop of shame. And from that breaking, something new is born. A canvas that bleeds with your real colors. A journal that weeps with your forgotten language. A melody that trembles like your own heartbeat. A piece of you no longer hidden. There is beauty in darkness, not because it is pretty, but because it is honest. The forest in you is not empty. It is alive with creatures, symbols, voices. It is mythic. It is archetypal. It is a mirror of the unconscious. And when you dare to step into it, you begin to remember stories that were never told, but always known. That is where the artist lives, not in the bright lights, but in the depths. Not in applause, but in silence, in the holy space between what hurts and what heals. The more you try to control the process, the more you cut off its breath. Creation is not mechanical, it is mystical, it is the soul's language made visible. So let the storm come, let the ink smear, let your hands tremble. Let your words make no sense at first, let the chaos lead. Because chaos is not the enemy of art, it is the womb. You are not here to decorate the world. You are here to birth it again through your own surrender. And the first contraction is always shadow. There is a door inside you that only opens inward. It does not respond to force, to willpower, or to cleverness. It opens through presence, through humility, through the quiet act of sitting with what you've spent a lifetime avoiding. The shame, the grief, the rage, the longing, all of it. To integrate the shadow is not to fix it. It is to listen. You sit in the dark with yourself, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a part of you to be remembered. You light a candle in the cave of your soul and wait. The monsters you feared begin to soften. The voices you silenced begin to speak, not with violence, but with truth, because all the shadow wants is to be seen, and once seen, it transforms. The anger becomes clarity, the grief becomes depth, the fear becomes direction, the shame becomes compassion. This is not magic. This is what happens when the soul is no longer split. When you stop pretending to be only the light and allow yourself to be whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It is inclusion. It is standing in front of your mirror, no longer editing your reflection. It is writing what feels too raw to share. It is painting without knowing the outcome. It is trusting the chaos, trusting the silence, trusting yourself. There are many ways to meet the shadow. Journaling with brutal honesty. Creating without censorship. Spending time in nature, letting her speak to your forgotten parts. Seeking solitude not to escape, but to reconnect. Noticing what triggers you and asking, what part of me have I disowned? This is shadow work. It's not glamorous, it's not comfortable, but it's real. And it is in that realness that your creativity is reborn. You begin to create not to impress, but to express. Not to escape yourself, but to meet yourself. Not to gain something, but to give form to what already lives within you. That is liberation. No more waiting for inspiration, no more begging for validation, no more hiding behind the myth of being not ready. You are ready when you stop pretending you are not. And your creativity knows this. It doesn't want your control, it wants your honesty, it wants your surrender. It wants your yes to the parts you still flinch away from, the trembling yes, the terrified yes. The quiet yes that breaks the cycle of self-rejection. From that yes, the gates open. Your art changes, your energy changes, your relationships change. You become less performative and more present, less driven by fear, more moved by truth. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, dream differently, because you are no longer rejecting your own soul. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be faithful to the voice inside you that has always whispered, "There is more, there is more." And now you know where that more lives. It was never outside you, it was never in someone else's praise, it was never in perfection. It was in the room you locked long ago. You hold the key now. Open the door, not to escape the dark, but to let the dark speak. To let it shape something beautiful, something wild, something only you can bring into the world. You are not here to shine instead of suffer. You are here to shine through what you've suffered. That is the art that heals. That is the light born from shadow. So I ask you now, what part of yourself have you kept in the dark, hoping no one would notice? What truths have you silenced, not because they weren't real, but because they felt too heavy to carry into the light? And what if those very truths were the seeds of your most powerful creation? The journey through the shadow is not the end, it is the beginning of a life lived in truth, in wholeness, in depth. You were never meant to be only light or only dark. You were meant to be both, a sacred tension, a living paradox, a vessel of fierce and gentle beauty. Your creativity is waiting on the other side of your honesty. Let it move through you. Let it reshape you. Let it remind you of who you've always been beneath the silence. If this message touched something deep inside you, if it echoed the silent parts of your own story, consider supporting this work by clicking Super Thanks. Your generosity helps keep this space open for those still searching for their voice in the dark. Please subscribe, share your reflections in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Your presence matters, your story matters, and the world needs your truth. Watch the next video. We'll walk further together into the dark and toward the light. You are not alone anymore.